Yes, so a very good question. So actually on the tripling of renewables, that's by 2030. And that, in my view, is a very ambitious target because as most of the people working in the renewables business know, right now the supply chains are very tight. So we will need to build a lot of capacity to deliver on this 11,000 gigawatts. You know, it's the same amount as the total power currently installed in the world. And we have to do it in the next 7 years. So, but it's good news overall for emissions because more renewables means less emissions. For the other target you mentioned, it's actually scope 1 and 2 emissions from their operations of these 50 oil and gas companies. It's a good start. If the entire oil and gas industry signs up, that's 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. That's a big number, you know. So I think it's all the companies who haven't signed up need to sign up, and that's by 2050. So there's a further out. Both are good progress. There is a lot more to be done in the time we have rest of this week and next week at the COP. Yeah, so a couple of things. One is that I think the phasing out or phasing down of fossil fuels is the wrong question because, you know, if you go back to the history of energy, no fuel has ever been phased out. We're still burning wood, we're still using coal, we're still using, cow dung, so everything is still used. So that is not the issue. The issue is we need to get emissions down, and the bad news is the emissions, as you know, are not going down. This year is going to be a record year of emission. So I think that's where the focus is. So that's why things like the methane target, more renewables. One of the other targets which has been announced is energy efficiency, which is, money in the bank for everybody. So that's something people need to do. Ultimately, down the road, we will need to start to decline oil and gas, but that should not be the focus today. Remember that there are a lot of people in the world who have no access to energy, over 1 billion people. So if they go from wood to LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, that's energy transition for them, and that's a good thing. So we shouldn't be thinking that everybody has to use renewables right away. Yeah, so remember, let's make it two groups, developing countries and the developed countries, so the OECD, US, Europe, Japan. They are doing a lot to reduce their emissions. The challenge is that all the emission reduction they have is still lower than the emission increase from the rest of the world, including, as you say, India and China. And India and China are very different. China is a much larger economy, is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, and is doing a lot, installing renewables, trying to phase down coal, and EV launch in China has been great. So China is doing a lot of things. India, on the other hand, is still growing, still developing. India probably going to continue to use coal for a long time. In my view, India should use more gas as quickly as possible and also start to think about transitioning to, it's doing renewables, but it needs to do renewables at a much faster pace. But let's not forget the rest of the developing world, which has a lot of other emitters. I think they all will need to have what we call a multidimensional path to net zero. It's not a single path. It's not one point to the another point for all of the world. It is going to be multidimensional, multi-fuel, multi-speed, different policies. You have to start with where you are in each country. You can't just have a one answer for everybody. So I think that's the way I see energy transition unraveling, and nobody actually knows what will happen. We will continue to talk about it and write about it.